6 reasons why an LLC is the right structure for your startup. Find out why an LLC has been in the last decade the legal darling of startup owners when it comes to choosing a business structure, and see how the flexibility, simplicity, and fiscal attractiveness of an LLC can help your nascent company get liability protection from day one. A must-watch for entrepreneurs who want to buttress their business and take advantage of the hybrid benefits an LLC offers versus a corporation or a partnership. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous. If you're doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka. Now let's roll. Today I want to talk to you about 6 reasons why an LLC is the super right structure for your startup. LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. What are the pros here? You can register easily. This is an ideal company structure for a startup because it is fast and simple. You can do the registration without an attorney. Even though, and I will talk about that later on, it's always good to have an attorney with you. The filing fee is very low. In some states, it can go all the way to $25. Once you've registered your LLC with the states, you can get an EIN, an employer ID number, employer identification number from the IRS, and you get the business bank accounts and business checks. Just that quickly, you are in business. So the manager of the LLC, often the owner or the co-owners, have the authority to enter into contracts as the LLC. You can also have an inventor assign their patents to the LLC. You may find that the hardest part of forming an LLC is actually picking the name, because it is one thing that you cannot change later. So a lot of companies will choose a name that is short and abstract. So keep in mind, though, that the most well-known benefits to forming an LLC versus doing business as a sole proprietor or a corporation or partnership is that an LLC provides for separation between your personal assets and company assets. Now let's talk about the next pros here. You don't have double taxation. Depending on the company, how the company is established and how many staff members you have or how many investors you have, a small business startup often creates an LLC because this legal structure helps it avoid double taxation, and you can still support multiple classes of stock if needed. Now, what is double taxation? This usually occurs when an entrepreneur chooses a C Corp business structure, so the company and the owner are both taxed separately. And that happens in April, right? So an LLC prevents this, as it is taxed more like a sole proprietorship. This can be especially useful. Think about it. If you're using a startup accelerator, for example, you can use an LLC, and you can always convert the LLC to a corporation through a fairly simple process later on. Another advantage of choosing a limited liability company as the legal structure for your startup is that you can make changes easily. Right? Once you have set it up, there is no need for a lot of continual maintenance, and perhaps more importantly, it's very easy to add new investors, new partners, or even sell interest in the entity to someone else. Something that is not possible in other legal structures. For example, in the C Corp, right? In the C Corp, minutes are required for making board decisions. So typically, LLC have fewer restrictions on many administrative items compared to other business structures. I'll be right back right after this, and I'm going to tell you more about the advantages of having an LLC. I already gave you 3 reasons. I'm going to give you 3 more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are talking today about 6 reasons why a limited liability company is the right structure for your startup. Number 4, I gave you 3 already. Number 4, you can choose your LLC location. This is great. Delaware, as a matter of fact, the state of Delaware has been at the forefront of incorporation and has low cost. So the judges of the Delaware Court of Chancery are also usually pro-business. So you'll find that there's a lot of there are gazillions of states they're following Delaware's lead because they've seen the benefits. In case you want to incorporate as an LLC closer to home, check out the states around you and see if they have the same benefits as Delaware. The cost of setting up an LLC depends on what state you're setting the company in. Regardless of the cost, it usually makes sense to set it up in that state that you work in. For example, in New York, many people think they can set up a Delaware or Nevada or Wyoming LLC to avoid paying New York State and New York City taxes, but that's not really true, because if you operate in New York State at all, you are still subject to their tax filing and tax paying requirements regardless of what state your LLC was formed in. Now, another thing you want to think about here is that taxation should not be the only reason why you are setting up your LLC in a particular state. There are other business goals or business strategies or business tactics. You also have to think about where the bulk of your customers are, the bulk of your vendors are, the bulk of your strategic partners are, right? For example, a lot of companies in the IT sector will want to form their LLC in California because they are closer to Silicon Valley, right? Even though California's LLC formation structures is not as straightforward as Delaware's, the thing is that California still has a great base when it comes to the IT sector. So a lot of IT startups choose, to incorporate in California. Another advantage when it comes to choosing an LLC is that you can protect your personal assets. I started talking about that before. So many startups create the LLC structure to protect their personal assets against lawsuits directed at the company. Something you don't have when it comes to a sole proprietorship, right? Because a sole proprietorship can be a risky entity to start with. Riskier is a general partnership. So after a period of expansion and growth, many founders convert their LLCs to an S Corp or C Corp. This is because an LLC is limited in what it can do when it comes to acquisitions and mergers, right? So LLC tends to be adequate for businesses that are more in their beginning stages. So you start as an LLC, and then as the business grows and expands, you change it into an S Corp or more preferably into a C Corp. So you can probably just file an IPO and raise cash on the stock market, and the rest will be history, right? Number 6. Remember, we're talking about 6 reasons why an LLC is the right structure for your startup. So here's the 6th reason. You have complete management flexibility. This is important, folks. An LLC can opt to be managed by its members. So this structure, this paradigm allows all owners to share in the business day-to-day decision making, or by managers who can be either members or outsiders, right? This is particularly relevant because if members aren't experienced in running a business or don't want to hire people who are, it's better that they assign that task to somebody else. In many states, including New York and California, an LLC is member managed by default, unless and until explicitly stated otherwise in filings with the Secretary of State or the equivalent agency. Okay, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're also having a conversation here about the 6 reasons why an LLC is the right structure for your startup. If you love the quality and clarity of the content we're sharing with you today, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you are in the loop. You're kept in the loop whenever we release a new show, and we release shows every single day, the rain or shine. Comment below. Let us know your experience with filing for LLC. Do you currently own an LLC? Are you a startup owner? If you have another legal structure, share with us your experience. Please also don't forget to comment below, to like this content, to share it. We want to spread the word as much as possible, and we really appreciate that. Now, we've talked to you about the pros, the 6 pros of choosing an LLC as the structure for your startup. I think it just makes sense to pay a little attention to the cons, right? So what are the cons of having an LLC? There are 3 possible drawbacks. Now, limited liability has limits. So in a court proceeding, for example, a judge can rule that your LLC structure does not protect your personal assets. So this action is called piercing the corporate veil, and you can be at risk for it if, for example, you don't clearly separate business transactions from personal, or if you've been shown to have run the business fraudulently in ways that resulted in loss to others. Another disadvantage for the LLC is the self-employment tax. So by default, the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, considers an LLC the same as a partnership for tax purposes, unless the members opt to be taxed as a corporation. So you have to, while establishing the company, you have to opt to be taxed as a corporation. If your LLC is taxed as a partnership, the government considers members who work for the business to be self-employed. This means that those members are personally responsible for paying Social Security and Medicare taxes, which are collectively known as self-employment tax, and those are also based on the business total net earnings. On the other hand, if your LLC files forms with the IRS to be taxed as an S Corp, you and other owners who work for the company pay Social Security and Medicare taxes only on actual compensation, not the whole of the company's pre-tax profits. You also have a third disadvantage, and that's the consequence of member turnover. This could be high, depending upon the industry. And if you have a turnover, there could be some implications here. In many states, if a member leaves the company, dies, or goes bankrupt, the LLC must be dissolved, and the remaining members are responsible for all remaining legal and financial obligations necessary to terminate the business. So these members can still do business though, but they'll just have to start a whole new LLC from scratch. So there's a risk there, especially if the LLC, the current LLC is established, people are starting to know you, the brand is getting recognition, and something happens and you have to start over. This could be a little frustrating and a little demoralizing. Let's talk now about how to start your LLC. How do you start your limited liability company? I would say before you start everything, even though you can file your LLC yourself, it's better to hire an attorney or any other legal experts who can help you with this. This is the recommended action here. But how do you start your LLC if you want to do it yourself? You choose a name, right? So you want to register a unique name in the states where you plan to do business. So to make sure someone else doesn't have your business name, you want to do a thorough search of online directories, county clerks' offices, and the Secretary of State's website in your state, and any others in which you plan to do business. So for a fee, a lot of states will let applicants reserve an LLC name for a set period of time before filing articles of organization. You want to choose a registered agent. So after choosing the name, you need to choose a registered agent. So this is the person you designate to receive all official correspondence for the LLC. This is critical though, because you need to nail down to who the person is before filing articles of organization, because states typically require you to list a registered agent's name and address on the form. Now, though people within the company are usually allowed to serve in this role, states generally maintain lists of third-party companies that perform registered agent services. So you can pay someone else, you can pay a third party to fill that gap, to fill that role. And then now you need to file articles of organization. Now, this step, in essence, brings your LLC into existence. So states require basic pieces of information about your business, which, if you thought through your business plan and structure, should not be hard to provide. You'll be asked to supply details like name, the principal place of business, and the management type. Next, once you file that, you need to get an employer identification number, an EIN. The IRS requires any business that has employees or operates as a corporation or partnership to have an EIN. This is usually similar to a Social Security for companies. So this is a 9-digit number assigned to businesses for tax purposes. So this rule applies to LLCs because as creations of state laws, they're classified for federal purposes, federal tax purposes as either a corporation or a partnership. After doing that, you need to draw up an operating agreement. So this is the kind of documents that includes specific information about your management structures, including an ownership breakdown, the voting rights of the members, the powers and duties of members and managers, and how profits and losses are distributed. This is very important. Depending upon the state, you can either have a written or oral agreements. I believe it's always great, and this is what research has shown us, that you should have a written agreement. You never know. Okay. Now, many states don't require an operating agreement, but it's always good to have one, especially how to distribute profits and losses. Another thing you want to do very quickly is to establish a business checking account, right? This is part of the housekeeping task that you need to do to keep your business and personal affairs separate, right? If you don't want the IRS to start taxing you or you don't want the judge to say that your personal assets are lumped into the business asset, you need to have a business account, business checking account. So that by having that separate checking account, you are drawing a bright line between the two. This is critical if you want to mitigate any potential risk to your personal asset, right? Especially if a lawsuit calls into question your business practices. All right, folks, so this is it. We are at the end of today's show. I really appreciate having you around today. And let's quickly give a recap of today's conversation. So 6 reasons why an LLC is the right structure for your startup. So in the first section, I spoke about the pros. So you can register easily. Number 2, you can have double taxation. Number 3, you can make changes easily. Number 4, you can choose your LLC location. Number 5, you can protect your personal assets. Number 6, you have management flexibility, right? Number 2, just to quickly number 2, you don't have double taxation. Okay, just want to correct that. And the cons. So the disadvantages of LLC, I also spoke about that. So you have limited liability. Limited liability has limits, self-employment taxes, and consequence of member turnover. And then I spoke to you about how to start your LLC by choosing a name, choosing a registered agent, filing articles of incorporation, getting an employer identification number, drawing up an operating agreement, and establishing a business checking account. I will talk to you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.